This is a satellite image of the Indian Ocean. There is nothing out here, just water. Thousands of miles of it in every direction. No land, no ships, nothing. And then, right in the middle of all that emptiness, there is a runway. Not a dirt strip, a full concrete runway, almost 2 miles long, sitting on a tiny island that barely pokes above the waterline. And from that runway in the year 2001, US bombers took off, flew nearly 3,000 miles to Afghanistan, dropped their bombs, and flew all the way back, before most Americans had woken up for work. Same day, next mission. They did it again, and they did it for years, from this island that almost nobody has ever heard of. The closer you get, the stranger it becomes. Warships sitting at anchor in a lagoon. Fuel tanks big enough to keep an entire air force flying for months without a single resupply. Antenna fields that talk to satellites you will never hear about. And underneath all of it, in that lagoon, nuclear submarines. This island does not appear on any map you have ever owned. You cannot go there. Most people have never heard its name. It is called Diego Garcia, and what the US built here on a coral island in the middle of an ocean nobody thinks about is one of the most extraordinary things I have ever come across. Take a globe. Put your finger on the east coast of Africa and drag it east across the ocean. Past India, past Sri Lanka. Keep going until there is no land in any direction for over 1,000 miles. 7 degrees south of the equator, as close to the geographic center of the world as you can physically get. The island itself is not much. It is shaped like a fishhook, about 15 miles of land curving around a lagoon of completely still water. The highest point on the whole island is less than 10 feet above sea level. A bad storm could wash over it entirely. And yet, the US military poured billions of dollars into it because of what surrounds it. To the northwest is the Persian Gulf. A third of the world's oil moves through there every single day. To the northeast is the Strait of Malacca, a strip of water through which 40% of all global trade passes every year. To the west, East Africa. And in every direction, across millions of miles of open water, there is not a single rival base anywhere near it. From Diego Garcia, you can reach almost any target in Asia, Africa, or the Middle East within hours. You can send a submarine out of that lagoon and it disappears into 3,000 meters of open ocean in under 10 minutes. What they built on it is the part nobody talks about. Go through it piece by piece, and it stops feeling like a base. It starts feeling like something else entirely. Start with the runway. Almost 2 miles of concrete, strong enough to land a fully loaded B-52, a plane that carries 60,000 pounds of bombs in a single trip. But also the B-2 stealth bomber, one of only 20 ever built. A plane that can fly across an entire continent, drop its payload, and return home, without the enemy ever knowing it left the ground. You do not build a runway like that on a remote island, unless you are planning something. Behind the runway are the fuel tanks, and this is where it starts to be hard to believe. The tanks at Diego Garcia hold enough fuel, for planes, for ships, to keep everything running for months without a single delivery from anywhere else. The island is 12,000 miles from the US, and it never runs out, because somebody planned for that from the beginning. That calm water inside the curve of the island is not just scenery. The US Navy keeps a full squadron of cargo ships anchored there, each one packed with tanks, armored vehicles, weapons, and supplies, enough to fully equip an entire marine fighting force. A war starts somewhere in the region, the troops fly in, and their equipment is already there, already floating, already halfway to the fight. But the thing that actually makes this island irreplaceable is underneath the water. Diego Garcia is one of the only places in the world that can actually maintain nuclear submarines. The equipment, the specialists, the deep water they need. Nuclear submarines operating in this ocean have a home base that almost nobody can threaten, in waters nobody fully controls. And above the tree line, the antennas, satellite uplinks, signals dishes pointed at the sky, downlinks for spy satellites passing overhead. A web of communications connecting the Pentagon to every unit operating across the entire eastern half of the world. What those systems can actually do has never been fully disclosed, probably never will be. And on top of all of that, because people still have to live here, there is a hospital, a plant that turns seawater into drinking water, a power station, warehouses, repair shops, and a golf course. Because if you were going to put people on a tiny island in the middle of the ocean indefinitely, Apparently, you give them somewhere to putt. Diego Garcia is not a base. It is a city. A completely self-sufficient, invisible military city that does not appear on any map you have ever seen. And that city has already gone to war. Here is the part most people miss. This is not a plan for what might happen someday. This island has already fought 3 wars from the same runway, and almost nobody noticed. August 1990, Saddam Hussein invades Kuwait. The US starts building the biggest military response since World War II, and almost immediately, Diego Garcia activates. By January 1991, the bombers are taking off from that runway headed north. More than 200 bombing runs over 44 days, thousands of tons of bombs dropped on Iraqi positions. All of it launched from a coral island the people being bombed had never heard of and could not have found on a map. Then September 11th happens. And within weeks, bombers are already leaving Diego Garcia for Afghanistan, nearly 2,900 miles from the island to Kabul. AB-52 flies at around 525 miles an hour. That is an 11-hour round trip. These crews took off from a tropical island in the Indian Ocean, flew across the Arabian Sea, dropped their bombs over the mountains of Afghanistan, and landed back on Diego Garcia before most Americans had gotten up for work. Then they did it again, next day and the day after. 2003, Iraq. Same runway, same island, same bombers on the same routes. Diego Garcia has now been the launchpad for 3 separate wars in 12 years, and it never showed up in the news coverage of any of them. Not once. 3 wars, 1 island, already happened, and the reason nobody replaced it, after any of them, is the part nobody talks about. If Diego Garcia disappeared tomorrow, just gone, off the map, what would the US use instead? After 60 years of operating from this island, there is no replacement. Every other US base in the region has a problem. Bahrain is inside the Persian Gulf, useful but boxed in. Djibouti sits in one of the most unstable neighborhoods on Earth. Every other base is on someone else's soil, which means the moment that country's government changes its mind, the access is gone. Diego Garcia has none of those problems. It sits in open ocean. It does not depend on anyone's politics to keep running. It just sits there, in the middle of everything. Reachable from nowhere, able to reach everywhere. There is no other piece of land on Earth that offers that. The Indian Ocean is not some forgotten stretch of water anymore. It is the ocean the modern world runs on. The oil, the shipping containers, the raw materials that feed every major economy on Earth. Most of it moves through this ocean every single day. Whoever operates freely in this space has a hand on a lever that affects almost everything. Diego Garcia is that lever. And here is what nobody wants to say out loud. The US almost lost it. A piece of coral, barely bigger than a small town. In an ocean most people cannot point to on a map. And from it, the US has launched 3 wars, parked nuclear submarines, and built a communications web that talks to half the world. It has been out there the whole time, doing all of this, without ever once showing up on the news. Diego Garcia is one of those places that makes you realize how much of what actually happens in the world is just never talked about. And there are more places like it.